they only know autism as they know it. And so you have to explain that it's a spectrum and that there are different sort of subsets, and that there is this one subset, and the subset of people that we work with who, with a little support, have a great set of talents that can be applied.
G'day, I'm Debra Caldow. Welcome to the Red Giraffe Solutions Expanding Worlds podcast, where we aim to support you as you help your young person with additional needs plan for their future, a future where they're safe, secure, and live a rewarding and fulfilling life. From around the world, I share stories and I share solutions from people making this possible right now. I'm a parent of a young person with additional needs, so I understand the challenges. Many of the people I've interviewed on this podcast have already helped me design a better future for my daughter, and I hope that they might help you as well to imagine what's possible for your young person. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about autism other than what I've learnt from my guests, but it's been clear from those conversations that there are plenty of stereotypes that need challenging. Too many people think that autism is a linear spectrum from less to more, when it's actually multidimensional, where individuals will have unique combinations of strengths and challenges that will vary in intensity and can change over time. This lack of understanding has, I believe, been one of the contributing factors to the low levels of employment for people with autism. In the next 2 episodes of the podcast, I'll be talking to someone who knows an awful lot more about this than I do, and who is helping challenge not only these misconceptions, but is also playing an important role in changing the employment stats as well. My guest is Dave Friedman, founder and CEO of AutonomyWorks. I'll let Dave explain what they do at AutonomyWorks, but what I will say is this is a perfect example of an organisation that combines promoting social change with business realities. But enough from me, let's hear from Dave. Dave, thank you so much for talking to me today. Can we start off by finding a little bit about you and then what AutonomyWorks is all about and how it came about?
Absolutely, Deborah. It's nice to be here. First, I guess I started a little bit with my background. I got into the business world in the mid 80s. I went to business school. I spent 10 years working in management consulting. I got into the internet space in the late 90s and ran a digital ad agency, and then started AutonomyWorks. But my business background doesn't have a lot to do with why I'm here, honestly. I have a son. He just turned 30 and he's autistic. He went to the local high school where we live, had a really good experience in high school, ran track and cross country, was included in regular education classes. And when kids here turn 14, and we live outside of Chicago, so when kids here turn 14 and a half, they start a process called transition planning. So starting to look at the kid and try to understand what they're going to do after high school. And Matt's my son. Matt's really good at a lot of things, really good at numbers, really good with details, but probably wasn't going to be successful at a traditional college. And he just doesn't have the social skills or the executive functioning skills for that. But he's really good at all this stuff. So my wife and I were like, so many talents, there's got to be a job for him. And when we started looking, we realized just how few jobs there are out there for adults with disabilities broadly, but in particular, adults with autism. In the US, the unemployment rate of adults with autism is something like 80%. And of the 20% that are working, most of them are working in low-skill jobs, cleaning tables, or they're working in manual labor, not anything that takes advantage of the skills and talents that lots and lots of people with autism have. And so at the time we were going through this process, I was still in the business world. And so anytime I would go out and go to dinner with somebody or something, I'd be like, hey, do you have any ideas what my kid could do? Trying to figure it out. And it finally sort of clicked for me. I was running marketing for a large retailer in the US. And at that time, we were still producing paper circulars that you would put into a newspaper that has sale items and specials for the week. We were producing something like 90 million of those a week to put into newspapers. And I had a couple hundred people that were doing nothing but sort of layout, checking to make sure that the pricing is right, checking sure that the pictures are right, zone pricing for different areas of the country and all of that. And I went down there one day and I'm like, Matt could do this. Highly process intensive work. And where if you made a mistake, it was really expensive. If you got the price wrong, we had to honor that price. And, it could cost you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars if you had the wrong price. So that was when I first realized, wait a minute, there is a place and there are jobs out there for people like Matt and other people like him. And so that was where the idea was born. decided not to go into the paper circular business, not exactly a growth business, even less so now. But I've been in the digital marketing space and we had the same challenges there. We would hire smart people out of college, we would put them on reporting tasks or operations tasks, and they would do that work for a little while. But inevitably, they would come to us and say, hey, I don't want to do that job anymore. So either find me something else to do here or I'm going to go somewhere else. And so that's basically where the idea came from. We match people with autism. Autism is a spectrum, but there's a significant subset of people with autism who are really good at process, really good with numbers, really high attention to detail. And we match that set of skills with the kind of work that needs to get done in lots of companies to maintain and execute the operations of those businesses. So that's sort of the concept behind it. We started in 2013, just coming up on our 13th anniversary here in September. And yeah, that's how we got started.
When you're talking about only 20% of people being employed, what do you think are the main reasons for that?
I think there are sort of two big reasons why we see such high levels of unemployment. The first has to do with the structure of jobs. Jobs tend to have lots of components to them. And sometimes there might be a component that's difficult for people that excludes them. So I'll give it just an example of that. People with autism often struggle with bilateral communication, with talking to somebody, particularly someone that they don't know in a high anxiety situation. But lots of jobs, that is a requirement. And so that one requirement, even though it may only be 5-10% of the job, can exclude people from the work. So I think one thing is that jobs are designed sometimes are exclusionary the way they're designed. And the second thing is the whole process of interviewing, of recruiting from the very beginning, of recruiting through interviewing, through assessments and onboarding, is poorly designed for people that have disabilities or that are outside of sort of the mainstream in any kind of way. So those are the two big things: the way jobs are designed and the way the interview process is designed. So for companies that want to hire people with disabilities, they need to think differently about how they design their work and how they design their whole interview, recruiting, and management processes.
You were talking there about you match people with organisations to do specific work. Did you find it challenging to convince those organisations that you had a great workforce? Because it's like a startup, isn't it, what you were doing? And then you had to go and
Yep.
find clients. How difficult was that process?
Yeah, the process of getting clients sort of remains the most challenging part of the business. We made a ton of progress on perceptions of people with disabilities and perceptions of people with autism in the last, 20 or 25 years. But there's still a lot of fear or unknown among people about autism and disability in general. That's really been a slow process for us as a company. I mean, when we started the company, we started with people that we knew already. So friendly people who maybe had a kid with autism who were willing to give us a chance, but they gave us like a very small chance. Here's 5 or 10 hours of work to do a week just to try it out. But we slowly built on that. And so we got small stories of successes, and then we tried to build bigger stories on top of that and bigger stories on top of that. But still, when we go into a new client, we have to spend a lot of time explaining to them and sort of proving to them the capabilities of our team. It's gotten better over the last 13 years, but there's still a lot of work to be done there. And I think with autism, you have another challenge. Autism is a very broad spectrum and it expresses itself in different ways in different people. And so while the growth and the prevalence of autism means almost everybody knows somebody with autism, may have a very different perception of that person based on where they are on the autism spectrum. So there are some people with autism that need help with activities of daily living, just eating, taking care of themselves. And there are others that go to work at places like Microsoft every day, that whole range. And so people have only their own experiences with autism. So they tend to project that out to the entire spectrum. They only know autism as they know it. And so you have to explain that it's a spectrum and that there are different sort of subsets, and that there is this one subset, and the subset of people that we work with who, with a little support, have a great set of talents that can be applied. It just takes a little while to get people to understand that and be comfortable with that.
Do you think that will change as people see more people in the workplace?
I think it's already changing. A little bit more comfort, a little bit more like, okay, yeah, I've heard stories about that, or I've heard about that. It's been on news stories, it's been on podcasts, things like this, like where people talk about it. And then I think every time someone hears a story, it opens their eyes a little bit more. The other big thing that's happening has been this whole emphasis within companies around neurodiversity and around sort of inclusion of people and the sort of recognition that, most companies have, 10, 20, 25% of their workforce has a disability of some sort, and that they haven't really acknowledged that in the past. And I think big companies are just opening up to understanding that people process information in different ways. People need certain types of support to be successful in their roles. And I think that trend is really positive for us.
You're talking there about the desire to be socially responsible, but are companies more driven by the money side of it than the socially responsible?
Oh, absolutely. And what we find is our clients are interested in talking to us because of the social impact, but they never hire us for that reason. They only hire us if they have a business problem that we can solve. So, they might have a conversation with us, they might find us interesting, they might enjoy a half hour on the phone, but they don't hire us unless there's a business problem. But there is a real skills gap out there still for people where making a mistake is very expensive. People can make a business case where, bringing in effectively specialists, people who have expertise and talent, especially matched to that work, is worthwhile. But that has to be the reason that people hire us. There has to be a business case for it. The reason that we talk to clients and the reason they should hire us is because we can solve a business problem for us. And autism is just like the thing we've discovered, like it's our secret, is that we've discovered that there's this population of people that are really good at this. And we, as a company, sort of what we've done is we figured out how to unlock that set of skills.
I have to agree with Dave that the growth in awareness around neurodiversity is driving a real change in perceptions. But I think as well, if more businesses listen to what Dave talked about in terms of the structure of jobs and the recruiting process, we would see a much more rapid acceleration in the number of people in paid work. In next week's episode, I'm continuing my conversation with Dave, talking about what he thinks needs to change in the world of work, and also the impact that AutonomyWorks has had on his son's life. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope that the stories and solutions shared on here help you as you support your young person to create their future. If you know anyone who would find the ideas useful, please share the podcast with them. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn at Debra Caldow. I'd love to have a conversation with you on any of the topics we all care about. Bye for now.